Namaste बिटिया, हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया. A very good morning to you all. Myself, JVN Dr. Ravi Jain, Assistant Professor, Department of Practice of Medicine and Faculty of Homeopathic Science at Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. In this series of lectures, we are discussing about the various diseases of the hematological system. In the last lecture, we have discussed about leukemia, we have discussed about acute leukemia, we have discussed about chronic leukemia and the different type of leukemias. We have discussed about the etiopathogenesis, the clinical features, the investigation and the management of leukemia. And we have also discussed about the hairy cell leukemia. In today's lecture, we are going to start with a new topic, that is the lymphoma. What is lymphoma? What are the different types of lymphoma? What are the clinical features? What are the various methods of investigations and management of lymphomas? All those things we are going to discuss in today's lecture. So let's start with lymphoma. What is a lymphoma? Lymphoma is also the malignancies of the lymphoid cells. So these are what are lymphomas? Lymphomas are basically the malignancies of the lymphoid cells, and these malignancies of the lymphoid cells, these range from the most indolent to the most aggressive human malignancies. So in lymphomas or in the malignancies of the lymphoid cells, these have a great variety of diseases that we can see in lymphomas or the malignancies of lymphoid cells. These can be very much indolent. Indolent means they are not producing much symptoms to the most aggressive form of human malignancies. In the most aggressive form, these are very much severe diseases that we can see. And these cancers arises from the cell of the immune systems. So these cancerous conditions, these are arising from the cells of the immune system at the different stages of differentiation. So these cancers are arising from the immune system at the different stages of differentiation, and this is resulting in the wide range of morphological, immunological, and clinical findings. So these cancers of the lymphoid cells, these are arising from the immune system, and these are seen at the different stages of differentiation. These are resulting with a wide range of morphological, immunological, and clinical findings. So we have morphology means visible appearance. There are immunological and clinical findings that we can see in case of lymphoid cells malignancies. Some malignancies of the lymphoid cells are always present in leukemia. So there are certain malignancies of the lymphoid cells that are almost always present as leukemia. Leukemia we have already discussed in the last lecture, and leukemia is due to the primary involvement of the bone marrow and the blood. So this we have discussed in the previous lecture about the leukemia. Now there are other variety of cancers that are presented as the lymphomas. What are lymphomas? Lymphomas are basically the solid tumors of the immune system. So leukemia was related to the blood and the bone marrow, whereas lymphomas are arising as a solid tumors in the immune system. Now, how can we classify lymphoid malignancies? The classification of the lymphoid malignancies can be done through the following ways. It can be done on the basis of morphological features. It can be done on the basis of clinical features. It can be done on the basis of immunological features, genetic informations, and constitutional symptoms. So classification of the lymphoid malignancies, it can be devised through the morphological way. It can be devised through the clinical, immunological, and genetic information can be given to the patient. The constitutional symptoms of any of the malignancies, especially the lymphoid malignancies, includes the fever. There is fever, sweat, anorexia, and weight loss. So we are going to see the fever, and there is sweat, excessive sweating in the patient. There is anorexia, that is no desire to eat, and weight loss. Weight loss is almost always uniform in case of any malignancy. Now these lymphomas, these are arising from the lymphoid tissues. So the lymphomas are arising from the lymphoid tissues, And these are characterized by the lymph node enlargement. So in the lymphomas, we are getting lymph node enlargement. There is splenomegaly and constitutional symptoms with a fatal outcome. So the outcome of lymphomas is usually fatal. And these are characterized by lymph node enlargement. So we have lymph node enlargement that we are going to see. There is splenomegaly and constitutional symptoms. These are diagnosed from the pathological findings. So lymphomas, about the lymphomas, we are going to see from the pathological findings on the biopsy. And the lymphomas are classified into two main classes. One is the Hodgkin's lymphoma and the other one is the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The majority of the cells are B cells in origin, and non-Hodgkin's lymphomas are separated from the Hodgkin's lymphoma by recognition of the Reed-Sternberg cells. So in the Hodgkin's lymphoma, we are going to see Reed-Sternberg cell. This term you have to remember in case of lymphomas, Reed-Sternberg cells. This is very important thing to remember. So lymphomas, these are arising from the lymphoid tissues, and these are characterized by lymph node enlargement. There is enlargement of the different lymph nodes. There is splenomegaly, and there are constitutional symptoms with fetal outcome. The constitutional symptoms includes the fever, sweat, anorexia, and weight loss. There are two important types of lymphomas. We have Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the other one is the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The majority of the lymphomas are of B cell origin. In the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, these are separated from the Hodgkin's lymphoma by recognition of the Reed-Sternberg cells. Now we come to the Hodgkin's lymphoma. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the Hodgkin's lymphoma, and in the next lecture, we are going to discuss about the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. All right, so let's start with the Hodgkin's lymphoma now. Hodgkin's lymphoma, it is a chronic lymphoproliferative disorder of the unknown etiology. So what is happening in the Hodgkin's lymphoma? It is a chronic lymphoproliferative disorder of unknown etiology, and it is of B cell in origin. And Hodgkin's lymphoma is more common in the whites than in blacks, and it's more common in the males than in females. So Hodgkin's lymphoma is basically a lymphoproliferative disorder of the unknown etiology. It is of B cell in origin, and it is more common in the whites than in blacks, and more common among the males with a ratio of 1.5:1. That is 1.5 times more common in males as compared to the females. And it often presents with the enlargement of the peripheral lymph nodes. So in Hodgkin's lymphoma, there is enlargement of the peripheral lymph nodes. Hodgkin's lymphoma is bimodal in distribution. That is, it is affecting two types of age groups at a particular time, or it is more common in two different age groups. So bimodal distribution of the age at the diagnosis has been observed, with one peak incidence occurring in the 20s. So one age group that is more susceptible to Hodgkin's lymphoma is the age of 20s, that is 25 to 30 years of age, and the others are those in the 80s, that is 50 to 70 years of age, with a median of 31 years of age. So Hodgkin's lymphoma is most commonly seen in two different age groups, one in the 20s and the other in the 80s. In the younger groups, age groups, the diagnosis to have a nodular sclerosing type of Hodgkin's lymphoma. There are different types of Hodgkin's lymphoma that we are going to discuss in this lecture. And in the younger age groups, the most common type of lymphoma of the Hodgkin's lymphoma that we are going to diagnose is the nodular sclerosing type of Hodgkin's lymphoma. In the elderly patients, the patient with infected HIV, we are seeing it is association. There's a great association between the Hodgkin's and the infection of the Epstein-Barr virus and the Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we have seen a great relation or the association between the Epstein-Barr virus and the Hodgkin's lymphoma. The hallmark of the Hodgkin's lymphoma is the presence of the Reed-Sternberg cell. This I have already told you that in Hodgkin's lymphoma, if Hodgkin's lymphoma is asked from you, then you should always write Reed-Sternberg cells. There are 4 different stages of classification of the Hodgkin's lymphoma. I must say that you should go through my e-notes and you should see for the notes and the picture that I have given in the e-notes related to the stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the stage 1, there is a localized disease with single lymph node or the single organ affected. In stage 2, there are 2 or more lymph node groups or the regions are affected on the same side of diaphragm. In the stage 3, there are 2 or more group of lymph node region both above and below the diaphragm are seen. And in the stage 4, we are seeing widespread disease of the multiple organs with or without lymph node involvement. I will again repeat the classification. In the classification of the stage 1, there is involvement of a single lymph node region or the lymphoid structure, for example, spleen, thymus, or the Waldeus ring. In the stage 2, there is involvement of 2 or more lymph node region on the same side of diaphragm. So in stage 1, there was single lymph node structure or the single region involved, like spleen, lip, thymus, and the Waldeus ring. In the second stage, there were 2 or more than 2 lymph nodes, but these are located on the same side of the diaphragm. In the stage 3, we have involvement of the lymph node regions or the lymphoid structures on both the sides of the diaphragm. Stage 3 is divided into 2 parts, stage 3.1, 3.2. In this stage 3.1, there is subdiaphragmatic involvement that is limited to the spleen, splenic hilar nodes, celiac nodes, or the portal sign nodes. In the stage 3.2, there is subdiaphragmatic involvement that includes the para-aortic nodes, iliac nodes, mesenteric nodes, plus the structures in the 3.1. In the stage 4, we have involvement of the extranodal sites. So there is involvement of the extranodal site in stage 4 beyond that is designated as E. E means extranodal site. With 4.A, there are no symptoms, and in 4.B, there is unexplained weight loss of greater than 10% of the body weight during 6 months before the staging investigations. There has to be unexplained, persistent, recurrent fever. So fever should be present in stage 4B. So unexplained weight loss greater than 10%, unexplained fever, recurrent temperature greater than 38 degrees Celsius, and recurrent drenching night sweats. So we have fever, we have weight loss, we have night sweats during the previous months. E is the involvement of the extranodal sites, contagious or proximal to the known nodal site. And stage X is 4X is the bulky disease that is involving greater than 1/3 widening of the mediastinum with greater than 10 centimeter maximal distension of the nodal mass. Now, what are the clinical features of the Hodgkin's lymphoma? Maximum clinical features I have already told you. This is just the revision of that particular thing that we have just studied. So the clinical features of the Hodgkin's lymphoma is divided into following categories. Number 1, we have local signs, certain local signs that will be present. In number 2, there will be systemic symptoms related to a particular system. Third is the metastatic growth or infiltrations. And the fourth one is the immunological changes. So in the clinical features of Hodgkin's lymphoma, we have local sign, we have systemic symptoms, we have metastatic growth or the infiltrations. Next one is the immunological changes with lowering resistance to infections and hemolytic anemia. Now, what are the things that we are going to see as the local signs? In the local signs, there will be lymphadenopathy. Lymphadenopathy means lymph node enlargement. The lymphadenopathy will be non-tender, it will be painless and rubbery, and usually in the neck or the supraclavicular fossa. Others are the axilla, groin, mediastinum, and abdomen. So lymphadenopathy will be non-tender, it will be painless, it will be rubbery, and it will be usually located in the neck and the supraclavicular fossa, in the axilla, groin, mediastinum, and the abdomen. The lymph node may fluctuate in size. So in the case of Hodgkin's lymphoma, the lymph node may fluctuate in size, and the characteristic they are characteristic in the advanced phases pyramidal swelling. So there can be a pyramidal swelling with the base of the clavicle here. You can get a pyramidal swelling and the apex of the base of the jaw. So this is the pyramidal swelling. This can be seen in case of Hodgkin's lymphoma. Splenomegaly is seen in 2/3 of the cases, and it can be usually moderate. And hepatosplenomegaly can be there in 50% of the cases with moderate and non-tender hepatosplenomegaly. So we have hepatomegaly, we have splenomegaly. Splenomegaly in 2/3 of the cases and hepatomegaly in 50% of the cases. The pain in the lymph node on alcohol consumption. So if the patient is taking alcohol, then he will complain of pain in the lymph nodes. Now, next we come to the systemic symptoms. So we have discussed about the local symptoms. Now we come to the systemic symptoms. In the systemic symptoms, we have fever with night sweats and weight loss. This we have already discussed in the symptoms. So in the systemic symptoms, we will have fever, we will have night sweat and weight loss with infections and anemia. Infections, it includes usually immune hemolytic anemia and thrombocytopenia. The fever is of basically unknown origin. The patient is not able to tell us the cause for that, or we are not able to find out the cause for fever. The fever persists for days to weeks. So there is constant fever lasting for days to weeks. and it is followed by a febrile interval and then the recurrence of the fever. The pattern is known as Bell-Epstein fever. So there is fever for days and weeks followed by the afebrile intervals and then recurrence of the fever. This pattern is known as Bell-Epstein fever. The fever is mild grade and remittent like tuberculosis, or it can be continued resembling typhoid. So the fever is present without any cause, and it can be mild grade fever like in TB or the continued type resembling the typhoid. Now we come to the clinical features, third variety, due to the metastatic growth or infiltration. So because of the infiltration or the metastatic growth, there can be changes in different part of the body. So in the skin, we can see a severe or unexplained itching. The patient can complain of severe or unexplained itching and cutaneous disorders such as erythema nodosum. So there will be itching and there will be erythema nodosum. In the CNS, there is paraneoplastic cerebellar degeneration with paresthesia and pain. There is diplegia or paraplegia. In the bones, there will be localized bony tenderness. There will be mediastinal pressure that will be causing dyspnea, cyanosis, stridor, and dysphagia. So due to the mediastinal pressure, there will be dysphagia, there will be cyanosis, stridor, and the dysphagia. In the GIT system, we are going to observe intestinal obstruction, jaundice, and ascites. So in the GIT, we are going to see intestinal obstruction, jaundice, and ascites. There will be genitourinary symptoms, which includes hematuria. There will be hematuria, pyuria, and retention of the urine. So in the GIT system, we are going to see intestinal obstruction. There will be jaundice or ascites. In the genitourinary system, there will be hematuria, pyuria, and retention of the urine. Due to the immunological changes, there will be lowered resistance to the infection. So due to the immunological changes, there will be lowered resistance to infection and hemolytic anemia. So these are the different symptoms that we are going to observe due to metastatic growth. Now, what are the various investigations that we can do? So what are the various investigations that could be done in this particular case? The various investigation includes the lab investigations, which includes the full blood count. Full blood count may be normal with normocytic normochromic anemia or lymphocytopenia with a poor prognostic factor. The eosinophilia or neutrophilia may be present. There can be ESR that may be raised. The lactate dehydrogenase level is raised, and these are the adverse prognostic features. So if the LDH is raised, it is a poor prognostic feature. The liver function test may be abnormal in the absence of the disease, or it may reflect hepatic infiltration. The renal function tests are done to ensure the normal functioning prior to the treatment. In the lymph node biopsy, we are going to see the Reed-Sternberg cells that are absent due to non-rule out. So lymph node biopsy, it is showing presence of Reed-Sternberg cells. There are different types of lymphocytes, eosinophils, and stroma, which destroys the cells. In the imaging techniques, we have chest X-rays, may show a mediastinal mass. The chest X-ray scan of the abdomen and pelvis permits staging. For the bulky disease greater than 10 centimeter of a single mass node, it is an adverse prognostic feature. And in the bone marrow, if the B symptoms of anemia, thrombocytopenia, leukopenia are present. And other imaging, which includes gallium scanning, PET, and sometimes useful. So in the lab investigation, we are checking for the full blood count. We are checking for the eosinophilia and neutrophilia. The ESR will be raised. The LDH will be raised. We have to check for the liver function test, the renal function test, the lymph node biopsy has to be done. That will show Reed-Sternberg cells. In the imaging techniques, we are going to see the chest X-ray for any sort of mediastinal mass. We are going to check for the CT scan. We have to check for the bulky disease and the bone marrow if the B symptoms of anemia, thrombocytopenia, and leukopenia are present. Other imaging techniques include the gallium scanning and PET are sometimes useful. Next, we come to the management part. In the management of Hodgkin's lymphoma, the patient with localized Hodgkin's lymphoma are cured greater than 90% of the time. So the prognosis is good feature. The patients of the Hodgkin's lymphoma are cured greater than 90% of the time. A brief course of chemotherapy is followed by the radiotherapy to the sites of node involvement in patients with localized or good prognosis disease. Here, extended field radiotherapy is having a high cure rate. The chemotherapy regimen is a combination of doxorubicin, bleomycin, vinblastine, and the dacarbazine. So we have to give the chemotherapy that is consisting of ABVD. Another chemotherapy, we have the MOP regime. MOP regime consists of methyl chlorothamine, vincristine, procarbazine, and prednisone. These regimens are replaced by the ABVD due to the risk of the development of acute leukemia. Autologous bone marrow transplantation can be cured in half of the patient in whom effective chemotherapy regime failed to induce durable remissions. Now, what is the prognosis of the Hodgkin's lymphoma? Over 90% of the patients with early Hodgkin's lymphoma achieve complete remission when treated with chemotherapy and is followed by involved field radiotherapy, and the great majority is cured. There is a long-term disease-free survival in the patients with advanced disease can be achieved in greater than 75% of the patients who lack systemic symptoms and 60 to 70% of the patient with systemic symptoms. The most serious late side effects include the secondary malignancies and the cardiac injury. Now, what are the side effects of the treatment? In the side effect of the treatment, we can have Lermit syndrome or Hermit syndrome that occurs in around 15% of the patients who receive thoracic radiotherapy. The syndrome is manifested by electric shock-like sensation into the lower extremities on flexion of the neck. So if the patient is flexing the neck, there will be electric shock-like feeling in the lower extremities. There will be infertility in concern of all the patients undergoing treatment of the Hodgkin's lymphoma. And there is development of hypothyroidism after radiotherapy. So the side effect include Hermit syndrome, there is infertility and development of hypothyroidism and radiotherapy. Now, as I have discussed with you, you should remember the name of the 4 different type of Hodgkin's lymphomas classification. You don't have to go into the detail, but you should know the names of 4 classical Hodgkin's lymphomas. One, we have nodular sclerosing. Second is mixed cellularity. Third is lymphocyte rich, and the fourth one is the lymphocyte depletion. So classical Hodgkin's lymphoma is divided into 4 varieties: nodular sclerosing, mixed cellularity, lymphocyte rich, and lymphocyte depletion. So this was all about Hodgkin's lymphoma. In the next lecture, we are going to discuss about the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now it's your homework to go through the book, and you have to write the etiopathogenesis, the clinical features, the investigation, and the management of Hodgkin's lymphoma in your notes. So just go through your book, try to consult the book and prepare your own notes. And because Hodgkin's lymphoma itself is a very important topic from the examination point of view. So prepare your notes accordingly. And if you have any query, then you can ask me. So this session is powered by Digital Version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you have understood the session properly. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box and I'll try to resolve it. So this was all for today. Thank you very much. Have a good day.